Well, hello, everyone. I wanted to welcome all of you to the Mandate to Mature with MaShani Allen. So glad to have you all join on today. Looking forward to today's teaching and just being able to share with you all more of who is Jesus. So we are technically going to be doing the who, what, where, when, why, and how when it comes to Jesus. But we have been stuck on who. We have been stuck on who for quite some time. And I am excited to continue in this for everyone. Um, what I really want us to talk about today, we've talked about Jesus, we've talked about the humility side of him. And for the past few teachings, we've been talking about how he is love. And I've been focused on the relationship and the story between Judas and Jesus for the past couple of weeks. And I wanted to share another example of showing love in action. Um, I think that this is important because when it comes to humanity and we consider the word love, a lot of times it's mainly focused on emotion. And love is more than just emotion. And the life of Jesus shows us love in action. And a lot of times it wasn't emotional. And I think that that's important because if we are supposed to be image and likeness, we need to represent him fully and we need to represent him fully in love. And I think that we have been limited in how we view love, how we receive love, how we give love, and how we even categorize love. Because the heavenly perspective of what love is and what we consider the perspective of love, they can be two different perspectives, and one is definitely more limited than the other. Now, I have certain passages of the Bible that are just very, very dear to me. And one of those passages I'm going to share with you today. I pretty much have this memorized because I've studied this particular passage so many times. And I think the reason why is because a lot of times when I would hear this teaching or the teaching about this particular passage, I really felt that it was limited in its thought, it was limited in its expression, and it was limited in the perspective that it gave. And with me being a word person and studying words and wanting to understand the meaning and the context, not just the content, a lot of times that helps us to fully understand what was fully being expressed and what was fully being revealed outside of just the words that was said. You know, what was that setting? What did that setting mean? What did that conversation mean? Because sometimes it's more than just the words that are being said. We have to understand the full scope of what is actually happening. So the passage that I'm going to share with you, or we're going to teach about today, actually comes from John chapter 4. It's a very I've taught on this multiple times. I actually will be reading some from my book, The Beauty of Holiness, because I actually write about it in this chapter. And some of what I wrote in this chapter, I actually want to be able to share in this Bible study. But I'm going to read it in the Amplified Classic version and just point out some things today. And again, we'll continue teaching on this next week as well, because I don't think I'll be able to cover everything in the time frame that we have today. And I don't want to limit myself to just one teaching if it doesn't have to be in this time frame. So, and from what I believe, even in my studies, it's only John who shares about the woman at the well. If I'm wrong, I don't think I am. But for some reason, I feel as though only the book of John tells us about this particular encounter. And I think that that's something to consider as well. Like when you read the Gospels, all of the apostles didn't cover the same aspects of Jesus' ministry. And John had a way of sharing things that none of the other apostles did. But in John chapter 4, in the Amplified Classic Version, it says, "Now when the Lord knew, learned, became aware that the Pharisees had been told that Jesus was winning and baptizing more disciples than John, though Jesus himself did not baptize, but his disciples, he left Judea and returned to Galilee." Then it says, and I parks here a lot of times when I do this teaching. In chapter 4, it says it was necessary for him to go through Samaria. Now, in the standard King James Version, it says he left Judea and departed again into Galilee, and he must needs go through Samaria. Now, when you read the Gospels, I believe from what I've read, for as much as I've read, I don't see any other passage in any of the Gospels where Jesus said he must needs go somewhere. Like that term represents the urgency of him being able to go to that particular location. Now, in my studying and preparing to do this Bible study, in one of the versions of the Bible, it shared the following information about Samaria. And I think that this is important, again, understanding the context of what is being said to help us really get a full perspective and view of why this was so significant. So in the Voice translation, it says the following: "For Jews in Israel, Samaria is a place to be avoided. Before Solomon's death 1,000 years earlier, the regions of Samaria and Judea were part of a united Israel. After the rebellion that divided the kingdom, Samaria became a hotbed of idol worship. The northern kings made alliances that corrupted the people by introducing foreign customs and strange gods. They even had the nerve to build a temple to the true God on Mount Gerizim to rival the one in Israel. By the time the 12 are traveling with Jesus, it has long been evident that the Samaritans have lost their way. By marrying outsiders, they have polluted the land. Israel's Jews considered them to be half-breeds, mongrels, and the Jews know to watch out for them, or else they will be bitten by temptation." So this is the mindset, this is the perspective, this is the picture of the people in that city. This is how people feel about them. This is how people see them. So to read that Jesus said he must, there was an urgency for him to go there, that's really, really interesting, because when we think of love, we think that love only goes to the pretty places, love only goes to the cloudy places, love only goes to the comfortable places, love goes to the perfect places. But when we read John chapter 4, verse 4, when he says, "I must needs go to Samaria," it was saying love is needed there. Think about that. Love must go to Samaria. So let me keep reading. So when we get to verse 5, it says, "And in doing so, he arrived at a Samaritan town called Sychar, near the tract of the land that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. And Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, tired as he was from his journey, sat down to rest by the well. It was then about the 6th hour, about noon." And what I wrote was this. I'm going backwards a little bit. Jesus was doing a work when there arose an urgency for him to go through Samaria. The term "must needs" conveys that he was not going for leisure, but for something important. One translation states it was necessary for him to go. There was a purpose and a mission prompting him to go through that particular city. So then the next verse says, in verse 7, there cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water, and Jesus saith unto her, give me to drink. Now again, I read to you all what was said about the perspective and the dealings that Jews had with people from that land. So clearly, Jesus didn't care about the culture. Jesus didn't care about the barriers. Jesus didn't care about the protocol. Let me put it this way. Love didn't care about the culture. Love didn't care about the barriers. Love didn't care about the protocols. Because when love is looking to touch a person, human things don't matter when it comes to the pure, unadulterated love of God. He supersedes, overrides, and does what love needs to do to reach. So, so Jesus saith unto her, give me to drink. The verse states that Jesus arrived at the well at the 6th hour, which is noon. In biblical times, the women went to draw from wells early to avoid the hot sun. Since this task was performed daily around the same time, the women probably worked and traveled in groups. However, in this passage, we read that when this woman came to the well in the heat of the day, she came alone. This symbolizes to us she was an outcast, and just as people avoided her, she wanted to avoid them. So then when we get to, so let me continue. Not only did Jesus show up at the well, he also addressed her directly. And he asked for her assistance. And you got to know that this woman knew how people of Jesus' caliber or culture felt about her, and felt about them, and felt about that place. But even in knowing that, she was still willing to engage with him. She didn't ignore him. She didn't run from him. She was willing to engage with him. So he asked her for something to drink. And then it says, then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, asketh drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. But this is the thing, the Jews may not have had dealings with Samaritans, but love has dealings with everybody. And that's something that we have to understand. When we are supposed to be living epistles being read of by men, when we are supposed to be image and likeness, when we are supposed to be the reflection of him in the earth, we can't pick and choose how we distribute his love. And that's one thing that is so significant about Jesus and his interaction with this woman at the well, because love was willing to override culture. Love was willing to override stigma. Love was willing to override gossip. Love was willing to override the opinions of men. Love was willing to go where everyone there thought love never would show up. They did not expect Jesus. They were looking, they were hoping, but the expectation of him really showing up, they wasn't too sure about that. And not only did he show up, he showed up talking to a woman. He didn't address the elders. It wasn't a man that he talked to first. It was a woman. So he was love was breaking every barrier, every wall, every stigma. Love, that's what love does. Let me keep going. So it says, the Samaritan woman said to him, how is it that you, being a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan, and a woman? So he was, first of all, it was the culture. Then it was the sex. So I mean, he just love don't care. God's love don't care. When it wants you, it wants you. For a drink. For the Jews have nothing to do with Samaritans, and in actuality, also the men have nothing to do with the women. That was the part B. So Jesus answered her, if you had only known and had recognized God's gift and who this is that is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him instead, and he would give you living water. Now, this is the thing. When I look at this conversation that is taking place between Jesus and the woman at the well, one thing that I see, and I took some notes, that's why I have these little sticky notes on the side. When I'm looking at this conversation, I'm not just seeing it as Jesus speaking. What I'm seeing is love is speaking. What I'm seeing is love engages. What I'm seeing is love disregards the rules of man to touch hearts. Love didn't just overpower her and overtake her without her permission. Love engaged her. Love asked questions. Love made her a priority. That's what love does. And that's why he is love. And we need to watch and read and look and dig and pick out and inspect the life of Jesus to fully understand what love is and how it is to operate not only in us, but through us. Let me keep going. So then she said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw with, no drawing bucket, and the well is deep. How then can you provide living water? Where do you get your living water? The living water is love. Then she says, are you greater than and superior than to our ancestors, Jacob, who gave us this well and used to drink from this himself, his sons, and his cattle also? And Jesus answered her, all who drink of this water will be thirsty again. But whosoever takes a drink of the water that I will give him shall never, no, never be thirsty anymore. But the water that I shall give him shall become a spring of water, welling up, flowing, bubbling continually within him into and for eternal life. So of course she wanted to know, can I have some water? I never want to be thirsty again. This is the part, verse 16. At this, Jesus said to her, go call your husband and come back here. The woman answered, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you have spoken truly, saying, I have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the man you are now living with is not your husband. And this you have spoken truly. So in my notes, I wrote the following. I'll do that part later. Love collects information without emotion. When we read that passage, when we read that exchange between Jesus and the woman, we don't hear anger, we don't hear judgment, we just hear that Jesus heard what she was saying. He collected the information without judgment. And we can tell that he did, because the woman said to him, sir, I see and understand you are a prophet. You don't see where she was offended. You don't see where she was angry. You don't see where she was mad. You see where she realized he collected information and everything he spoke to her was true, and she had to recognize that. So love collects information without condemnation. Love collects information without emotion. Love I'm talking about God's love is able to collect information without judgment. Love is not moved or swayed by the opinions of men. The other thing I see in this whole passage at this well is this, is that love sits, love waits, and love is not rushed. Love sits, love waits, and love is not rushed. So then Jesus has a whole dialogue with her about worship, and at the end of it, he makes it known that who they're looking for, he is that. And now, mind you, in the middle of him speaking with her in verse 27, the disciples come up and they're wondering, they're surprised, they're astonished to find him talking with a woman, a married woman at that. However, none of them asked, none of them inquired why he was speaking to her, but they definitely had issue and great concern with him doing that. But the thing was, with everything that love shared with her, it calls this woman in verse 28. The woman left her water jar and went away to the town, and she began telling the people, "Come see a man who has told me everything that I ever did. Can this be? Is this not the Christ? Must not this be the Messiah, the anointed one?" Now, in the other version that I have, clearly we are seeing that Jesus is breaking all accepted barriers, all accepted protocol, all accepted rules and regulations in order to introduce love. Love don't care about barriers, especially the ones that men set up. So let me find this verse in the other version that I have. In the voice version, it says, "I met a stranger who knew everything about me. Come and see for yourselves. Can he be the anointed one?" And the way I want to liken this verse is like, I met love, and love told me everything about me. And you have to know there had to have been a level of comfort that she had being with Jesus that she probably never had being in the company of any other man. And love caused such an exchange to happen to her, to even when she spoke her truth, she did not feel judged. Even when she spoke her truth, she did not feel dirty. Even when she spoke her truth, she did not feel vile. When she spoke her truth, she in turn felt and received genuine love. Now we have to ask ourselves, when people speak their truth to us, what do we give them in return? This is why we must look at the life of Jesus, because he is our example. He is our model. He is our template. He is how we are supposed to be. Would we be able to sit in a place that is culturally rejected? Would we be able to sit with a person that is culturally unaccepted and rejected? Would we be able to sit there and have others watch us sit there and still not fear the people, but only extend, express, and release pure, genuine love? It's an honest question that deserves an honest answer. And if we aren't there yet, this is where we are going. This is a mandate of maturity, because this is how Jesus moved, lived, breathed. So must we. Let me see what else I wrote about this. What I love is her ethnicity, her background, her marital status. None of that stopped love from urgently meeting with her. And we have to be careful and we have to be mindful that we don't allow external things to cause us to miss moments with people that can be the greatest thing for their hearts. We can't let the outside stop us from releasing what people need for their hearts on the inside. That's what I have for today's Bible study. We'll talk about this a little more next week. I thank you all for joining us, but now we are going to move into our Q&A. Thank you for joining the Mandate with MaShani Allen.